Our speaker today is Conor Moran, director of the Wisconsin Book Festival, a role he has held since 2013 when the Madison Public Library took over the event. As festival director, Conor supervises every aspect of the festival and works closely with leadership and other library staff in order to forge stronger connections with the community and other partners in the community. Today, he's going to share more insights into the book festival with us. We look forward to your presentation, Conor, and we've made a contribution to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thanks for speaking to us today. After we adjourn, Conor will be up here at the podium and for anyone who has a question. So, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start by just mentioning that I'm getting over some respiratory issues, so I'm going to cough. Just want you to know. It is lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. This is my third time speaking to Rotary, but it's been about 5 years, I think. So it's lovely to be back. And a lot has changed at the Wisconsin Book Festival since then. I also just want to thank so many of you in this room. There are sponsors, like signature sponsor Marv Levy, and representatives of the Friends of Memorial Library in the room, media partners, people who support the festival privately, volunteers. So thank you to all of you who take part and all of you who come to see amazing events at the Wisconsin Book Festival. Let's give yourselves a round of applause for that. I feel like I should have a theme song so we could all sing it, but I don't, and that feels like a waste, but maybe next year I'll come up with one. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the festival does throughout the year. This is an incredibly perfect week for me to be here because our fall schedule starts on Friday, and I'll get into that more, but we have 70 events coming up over the next 7 weeks. So a lot of different ways to engage with the festival in that time. The Wisconsin Book Festival is a year-round series of events. That is a change that occurred when I took over the festival in 2013. For 12 years, it had been a 5-day weekend event, and once we opened the new downtown central branch of the library, we had our own venue. And so over the course of 7 years, we have really made every effort to be on publishers' minds all year round. And what we've seen from that is the quality and the consistency of the authors who come to Madison to talk about their books has gone up every year. Consistently, we are getting the most kind of timely or biggest authors who can come. Last year we had James Patterson, who literally there's no one bigger. But we have bestsellers. I was just talking about some of the authors who are coming this year being featured in the New York Times Book Review on the front page, things like that, things that definitely have started to happen more and more frequently. We also have struck up a relationship with C-SPAN Book TV, so many of you can see Wisconsin Book Festival content throughout the year, but particularly the 4-day celebration gets carried live on C-SPAN and beamed out to the world. Last year we had live national call-in questions with them, so authors were able to respond to people who couldn't be in the room because they lived in Maryland or Alabama, but they were able to ask a question and influence what's happening here in Wisconsin, but also bringing what's happening here out to them. So the festival has grown tremendously in that time. We've almost doubled our yearly attendance over 7 years, which just makes for an incredibly lively event. What I'd like to talk to you about mostly is, pardon me, coming up this week, we have a couple of lead-in highlights to our big 4-day celebration, which occurs in October. On Friday night at Central Library, Christopher Leonard, whose new book, Cokeland, is an instant bestseller. It'll be, I think, number 3 on the hardcover nonfiction bestseller list this coming Sunday. But he's going to speak about, pardon me, he's going to speak about how the Coke industry's fortune was made. He did an incredible 7-year research into kind of where Coke Industries came from and how they've come to govern so many of the aspects of our lives, whether we know it or not. You may have heard him. He was on Fresh Air just last week. He's going to be in conversation with Brady Carlson from Wisconsin Public Radio. We do expect a very large audience, and we're very excited. Next week, we have former Commissioner of Baseball Bud Selig. Some of you may know that he teaches a class on the history of baseball at the UW in the history department. But Commissioner Selig has written a book called For the Good of the Game. It is an incredibly sweeping history about baseball. It goes into all the things that you want it to go into. Yes, he talks about steroids. Bud will be at the Wisconsin Historical Society Auditorium next week, Thursday at 5. And then our Cheryl Rosen Weston Memorial Lecture. I know Cheryl was a member of Downtown Rotary. When she died, she left an incredibly generous gift to the book festival to put on a series of special events. One of those is our annual Weston Memorial Lecture. And this year, former ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, is coming. One of the little wrinkles about that event is that we get to give away free books to anyone who comes. That's something that Cheryl cared very much about, putting books in people's hands. And so everyone who attends that event will get a free copy of that book. We do expect that to be an incredibly large audience. We have a number of different partners in the community, whether it's the La Follette School at the UW or the Harvard and Yale Alumni Associations, because apparently she got to go to both. So we're really casting a wide net for that, and we're very excited to be hosting Ambassador Power. And then The Death and Life of Ada Hernandez. Oh, and that has a typo in it. I'm sorry. That's not by Rebecca Mackay. But Aaron is coming to talk about his new book about the life of someone who has crossed the border multiple times, has dealt with immigration enforcement in multiple different ways, both herself and as her family members. It's one of those things that really makes a festival year incredible when you're able to take things that are happening, maybe not right here, but things we're learning about, things that we experience in our own way, and bring an author who can talk about these national issues to Madison. Turning my attention to the 4-day celebration. Every year, the Wisconsin Book Festival culminates in a 4-day celebration of about 60 events over 4 days. Yes, that's a lot. No, you can't make it to all of them, though I do my best to be at every single one. But we have amazing highlight events this year. I just wanted to walk you through a couple of them. We have a great slate of fiction this year. Taya Obrecht, who's one of those authors who is featured on the cover of the New York Times Book Review, is here for her new novel, Inland. She's a really young author. I think she's like 27, and this is already her second book. She won the Orange Prize for her first book. She will be here on Friday, October 18th. Carl Marlantes will be here on Saturday the 19th talking about his book, Deep River. That book takes place in the Pacific Northwest, but it talks about the origins of unions. It talks about the origins of political strife in America and left versus right. It takes place during World War I, but it couldn't feel more relevant to a lot of the things we talk about today. And then American Short Fiction is a literary journal. I call this one out because it's a very unique opportunity for us. They approached us and said, we want to host a reading at a festival. We think you would be a great fit. We want to talk about the future of fiction. We want to bring in authors who haven't had work published yet. And there's such a tremendous groundswell of talent coming out of the UW Creative Writing Program. We know you work with them, and so we want to bring 4 authors who got their degrees here at the UW back to Madison to do a reading about forthcoming work. And so 4 different authors and the editor of American Short Fiction are going to appear on at the final event of the 4-day celebration and talk about not only just the great work that they're doing, but the great work that's being done here in Madison to change the literary community nationally. Speaking of Wisconsin authors, I also want to call out some wonderful highlights. Veronica Rickert, who used to be on Wisconsin Public Radio, host of Central Time and various other shows. Her book, Outspoken, is going to kick off the festival on Thursday the 17th at Madison Central Library. Bianca Ballridge is a debut author. I picked her out because I think her book is particularly well suited to the Rotary audience. Her book is about race and the future of youth. The future of youth work. She talks about organizations that help at-risk youth or students who don't graduate from high school find ways to contribute to society. It felt her book is incredibly well researched. She has an academic background, and she does case study after case study about how these organizations' work is being undermined by powers beyond our control, but how it's the work of kind of people on the ground that keeps these organizations running. And I think you would all really benefit from coming to that. Oh, sorry. And then Kevin Henkes, our Caldecott winning Newbery honored children's author, is going to do a really intimate conversation about how he writes books for children. It's really, we've had him, talking to more than 200 children before. This time he's focusing on adults, and he's really going to bring us all into exactly what his process is and how that goes. And that's one of the things that makes the festival so special. You may know Kevin. He sells apples at the farmer's market, but he's also an internationally renowned children's author, and he's willing to give his time to the book festival to talk to all of us about how it is he does the amazing work that he does. A couple of the highlights, standalone highlights for the 4-day celebration. Maya Dusenberry's Doing Harm is all about how the medical community, the medical system in America is set up and doesn't believe in women's pain. This is something that we're talking about more and more often, but she's really one of the first people whose research shows how medical students are taught in ways that then kind of play down the pain that women go through, or don't research the pain that women go through. I didn't know that women's heart attacks present differently than men's heart attacks, but apparently women don't have left arm pain, they have lower back pain. And that's not something that enters the conversation in a triage room. So I think that event will be just a kind of, one of those things that you walk away from. It's good to see, but hard to take. But I'm very excited. Also, the renowned children's author Kate DiCamillo is going to do this year's Charlotte Zolotow lecture. We do anticipate an incredibly large audience for that. It's going to be held at Capitol Theater in the Overture Center with our program partners at the Cooperative Children's Book Center. That is all about kind of how her career building children's literature has gone. If you don't know the Cooperative Children's Book Center, you should learn about them. They're at the UW, and they teach the entire country about what we should be taking from children's literature. It's an incredible organization and community resource. The Stakes 2020 in the Survival of American Democracy is written by Robert Kuttner, who used to be editor of Time magazine, and he is talking about exactly that. What is at stake in this election? What are we making our decisions about? It's not necessarily a polemic from one side or the other, but he's talking about what the deeper meanings of many of the conversations that we have. What does it mean if we change immigration in America? What does it mean if manufacturing shrinks instead of grows? Those kind of things. And so I think it's a really wonderful book for all sides, because it breaks down what the issues and what the outcomes will be about our decisions in the next election. Maria Rana's Silver Sword and Stone it is not Guns, Germs, and Steel, though it is somewhat similar. It is a history of Latin America told through 3 lenses: the silver trade, the wars in Latin America, and the lasting legacy of their previous civilizations. Maria Rana used to work at the Washington Post. She will be in conversation on C-SPAN at 3 o'clock on Saturday the 19th. You may know Adam Rippon because he's an Olympian. And now he's an author. His book, Beautiful on the Outside, is all about, it's a memoir. It is irreverent, it is funny. Yes, he talks about the Olympics. Yes, he talks about coming out and being a gay icon. But Adam is one of the most engaging speakers you will ever see. And he's incredibly funny, and he's incredibly thoughtful. And that will also be at Central Library on the 19th. Then right after Adam, we have Donna Brazil, Yolanda Caraway, and Minion Moore. Their book is not, there's a typo too. It's called For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Politics. It is a riff on a poem called For Colored Girls Who Have Committed Suicide. But Donna Brazil worked in the highest levels of the Obama administration. Yolanda Caraway, Minion Moore, and Donna Brazil have been working on politics in America since the McGovern campaign. They have served in almost every capacity, from lowest level campaigner up through highest level advisor. And so that conversation will be a can't miss event at this year's book festival. Unfollow by Megan Phelps Roper. She is the granddaughter of the founders of Westboro Baptist Church, and she was a prominent member of that church. She handled all their social media, and her conversation is all about how interacting with people outside the church brought her to decide to leave the church. And it's all about how you can use social media to accomplish, good in the world, but also how one person's interaction with people outside of their echo chamber really changed her mind. And then we're going to end the night. We're going to open a bar at the library and talk about what we don't talk to our parents about. We're going to pick. It's an incredible book of essays where authors wrote about the things that they can't talk to their mother about, and that ranges from everything from substance abuse or their relationships with step-parents all the way to the sound of their mother's voice and how they can't ever tell her that your voice drives me crazy. But Michelle Philgate, who edited that collection, is going to choose a group of 4 authors who are taking part in their own events at the book festival, and we're going to have a drink and talk about what we can't talk to our parents about. So that'll be, me and Craig are going to do that. It is going to be, I think it's going to be a really great, raucous end to the Saturday, the 30 events that we host on Saturday, the 4-day. And then I just wanted to call out 2 events that happen. As I started this conversation, I said that the Wisconsin Book Festival is a year-round event, so just because the 4-day celebration ends doesn't mean that I stop hosting cultural events at Central Library. Richard Stengel's book, Information Wars, is all about how America either lost or didn't start the disinformation war early enough, and it concerns all the different ways that various entities have tried to change the conversation in America and what we need to do about it. It is kind of another one of those events that you come away from with a lot of knowledge that maybe is hard to take, but very, very important, and you will hear about this book all fall long. And then the final event of this year's schedule is called Secondhand. Adam Minter wrote a book a couple of years ago called Junkyard Planet, where he traced where all of our trash goes. And now that we have seen how China and India stopping taking our recyclables has changed what life is like for you and me. This book is all about kind of our culture of throwing things away, disposability. He goes to Manila and he talks to former rag pickers who used to go through dumps and find pieces of fabric and sell them back to clothing manufacturers for pennies. And now clothing manufacturers won't take those. And so, that entire portion of the economy for certain people has gone away. He goes to used goods stores in Ghana. He goes to resale shops in the American South. He goes all over the planet and looks at how we repurpose things when we choose to, when we choose not to, what makes something an antique, and what makes something you throw away when you move into a new house. So we're really excited about the festival. That is just a gloss on all of the things that we are going to do this year. Like I said, 70 events over 4 days. 60 events over 4 days, 70 events over 7 weeks, and we couldn't be more excited. I don't know what my time is, but I believe that that's my time. So I would be more than happy to take your questions. I'll stand over here, and you are free to go wherever you need to go. Back to work, Mindy.
Well, thank you, Conor, for that presentation about Wisconsin Book Festival. And as Conor said, he'll be here for if you have questions. I know I'm going to go. I might not make all 60 events, but I'm going to go. So we are adjourned.